Welcome to Dub Dub Podcast, Episode 1. Go Dogs. This is Episode 1 here of the Dub Dub Podcast. I've got my boy Noah Gargel here.
It's good to be here. It's good to be
Hell
here,
yeah.
man.
It's been a crazy ride. I think, we never really envisioned being in a studio here doing a podcast, but here we are. I think, just to kind of give a little bit of a background in terms of what Dub Dub is and what we do. We're a platform that exists on Discord, and it started that way, and it kind of grew. We had 2,300 people that started out with us in the first couple months, and things really blew up, and we decided to apply some structure to the rooms and really kind of take off with it and do something special with it. And so we cultivated this community, and it's been a wild ride, man. It's been awesome, and here we are, and we get to talk dogs, and
Absolutely.
we're giving it a stab here.
Yeah, no, we've had the opportunity to kind of, like you said, cultivate a community of just fellow people, Husky fans that have the love, that have the purple and gold going through their veins.
Yeah.
And a lot of people see us on Twitter Spaces with a lot of the crew that we have an opportunity to kind of pal around with in there, and it's fun. And we just said one day, like, why don't we do this a little bit more in a more structure? So here we are, man. Dub Dub Podcast, Episode 1. We're excited, and this is kind of why we're here. And I don't know if we could start at a better time. We got Coach DeBoer's second season, and man, it's fun.
Yeah, so, man. I mean, I think obviously expectations are high.
Very.
You come in ranked number 10 in the country after an 11-win season. You've got a coach that seems like maybe a unicorn. In terms of doing things like entering the big and just kind of popping off, and things are going nuts. And so, yeah, like you said, this is the right time to be kind of getting involved in something like this and taking things more seriously. So here we are.
For sure. I mean, I think one of the biggest things, especially when you get into a podcast, it's like, I don't think too many people probably start a podcast when your team is coming off a Jimmy Lake 4-8 type year, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy, right, to start a podcast when we go 11-2 and beat Texas in our bowl game. And I think our expectations are only higher, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think if we had another Alamo Bowl, I don't think we'd be okay with that.
No.
And so, Izzo, I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, what is your ceiling? What is your floor? Let's just get right into this.
Yeah.
What are you thinking on it? What does it look like for UW? How many wins? What is a floor and a ceiling for us?
Yeah, I think this season really depends upon injuries for the Huskies. I mean, you could say that with any team, right? But I look at this roster, and you try to find like weak areas of the team and things like that, and you just don't find a whole lot. You're coming off a season where your defense struggled in the secondary, and that had a lot to do with injuries and things like that. We may have addressed some of that with depth and with guys that we brought in from the portal and stuff like that. But I think what I think is realistic for us is somewhere between 8 and 11 wins. I mean, if you look at the roster, if you look at the teams game by game, it's hard to find, outside of maybe SC, a game where you could chalk it up as like, hey, we're going to be a 7-point dog in this game. So
so you would say that you're saying our ceiling is like an 11-1 type
11-1, 11-1, and I would say floor like 8-4.
Yeah.
How about for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's pretty realistic. I'm actually, our ceiling, I think, is the same. I think UW has the talent. I think especially with the Michael Penix, I think with the leadership we have on the defense coming back to having Eddie a full year healthy. I think obviously everyone knows you have a bona fide first rounder in Trice.
Yeah.
I think UW can be a 12-0 team when it comes to talent. I don't think there's been a 12-0 team in the Pac-12 since late 2012-ish, 13. Oregon, I think, was right around there. I think they were 12-0 in the Pac-12, but I don't think we've had one in over a decade. So I think for me, my ceiling would be 11-1.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think my floor is 9-3, just because I think at the end of the day, the 4 tough games that I would say that Could UW lose to a Utah year in and year out? Sure. And we have. Could we lose to an Oregon? Could we lose to an USC? And then is there going to be like a fluke game, right? Your Oregon States or you're on the road in the desert. That's always been a Achilles heel for the University of Washington over the years. So I think I'm going to say 9-3 though, because I think that I don't think that UW will lose. There's just no way they would lose all 4 of those teams.
Right.
And I think when you look at the schedules of you look at the rest of our schedule and like really look at those teams, I just don't think a lot of those teams can score with us,
Yeah.
And so I'm going to say 11-1 is our ceiling, just because I think it's so hard to go 12-0 in a Pac-12 so loaded with talent. But I do think our floor, because of the talent we have, is 9-3.
Yeah, I like that call. I mean, we've talked about this before offline, but when you think about, like, you're talking about the offense, you have Michael Penix and you have guys that coming back like Jalen McMillan and Roma Dunze. It's hard pressed to find a team that you can look at in the Pac-12 that can hold this team under 40 points.
Sure.
And so at that point, if we're doing football math, and football math can get wonky, but I think, like I said, this season really seems like it's shaping up to be dependent upon where you're going to take injuries, but where are those injuries going to happen? And so I think that's the difference. And I look at places, positions like edge and positions like safety, and those, I think if you take injuries in those spots, that's where we can drop to that floor. Sure. Right? I think we all know the strengths of what this team is if the casual Husky fan even might know, like, this team passes the football. Sure. When you look at the offense, is there any like area where you're like, hey, I want to see a step forward, or I maybe don't feel like that's an 11-win team at this position group or anything like that? Like, what are your thoughts there? Yeah,
I mean, I'll just talk about a strength real quick. With a team that has an offensive scheme that passes as much as we do, and we throw to our running backs out of the backfield, not a lot of teams have the bookend tackles like the University of Washington has. Getting Troy back, getting Roger back, and really solidifying that offensive line. Yeah, we got 3 new interior offensive line, and all 3 of them, I think, have spot starts throughout their career. Yeah. But really having that bookend tackles on the edges there, I think it just allows Michael Penix to kind of sit back and feel very comfortable, in his spot. And I think he was hit. At one point, I think 7 times throughout the year.
Yeah, he had 7 sacks.
7 sacks, and I mean, like, dude, that's pretty. I think there's games where years past we had 7 sacks against us in a game.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just I would say for me that's a strength that I'm super excited to still see there. Mm-hmm. It looks like the offensive line's shaping up to have. Kalepo at left guard, Mateo Mele at the center, and then Julius Bulow looks like he's kind of really starting to solidify that right guard position. And I mean, if you look at that front across the middle, you're looking at an average of like 6'6", 315 to 320.
Yeah.
I mean,
big dudes.
We got some big boys, and they can move. And I think that's kind of what I see as a strength that maybe not the common UW fan would know, because I think everyone, like you said, they know about Rome, they know about Jalen.
Exactly.
But I really like. What about you? What are some of the strengths you like on the offensive side of the ball?
I mean, I think that people are like maybe missing the fact that we have like we're saying here, everybody knows Jalen, everybody knows Rome. Past that, guys like Polk, guys like Jeremy Bernard, and a guy that maybe a lot of people don't know yet, Denzel Boston.
Local product.
That kid, man, I was staying on the sideline at a practice a couple weeks ago, and I tweeted this out. I don't think I've seen, like, I'm pretty positive that there isn't a defensive back in college football that could have defended the ball that Penix threw to him on. It was a dime, tight coverage, perfect body control. He's just dialed in. But point being is, past Rome and Jalen,
sure,
there are a few guys that you could peg and say those are dudes that are going to end up in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, a time where, you can look at this roster and go, there's 5 NFL receivers outside
of
bona
fide NFL wide receivers. Absolutely.
And we had the Ross and Pettis and those years and things like that with Browning, but I feel confident in saying there's 5 NFL receivers on the Huskies this year.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to talk to one of the coaches 2 weeks ago, and he said to me, everybody knows about Rome. And when I say everybody, we're talking on a world basis. Everyone knows because he's pushing the Ohio State, the Marvin Harrisons and the local kid.
Yeah.
That went to Ohio State, the wide receiver.
Emeka
Egbuka, thank you. And he said to me specifically, he goes, I don't think I realized that Denzel would be pushing Rome the way he is.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, dude, Denzel Boston was a kid that 2 years ago he didn't have a committable offer to UW till pretty late in the cycle.
Yep.
And for us to kind of stay on him, keep our relationships with him, and then get him in, and now our coaches, not just the wide receivers coach, but other coaches in the offense are saying like, dude, this kid is the truth, and he's pushing an all-American caliber type wide receiver. That's pretty exciting.
When you see him, you immediately you assume he's an upperclassman.
Sure.
Helmet on, right? Like, 'cause these guys are kids a lot of the time. That you can tell looking at their face. But the guy is as big as any receiver on the roster. Yep. And when I see that, I immediately think like, okay, when he gets onto the field, am I going to see something clunky, right? Like, am I going to watch his movements and things like that and see all that? And you don't. Like, immediately you see him as like, damn, this is a guy who's like up there in terms of body control, doing the little things that an upperclassman would. And that's no surprise to me that Shep, or that coach gave him that endorsement. So yeah, point being, we know that it's a passing offense. We know that this offensive line really protected Mike Penix last year very well. But there are some names, there's some deep guys who I think are really going to surprise and step up this year. And I think Denzel Boston is certainly one of those. Jeremy Bernard is one of those. What I'm curious about in terms of just the offense in general, because we've talked O-line, we know Mike Penix. What do you think about running back? I know today news broke, Cam Davis is out for the year with a lower leg injury or lower body injury. I tweeted out the remaining running backs. You've got Richard Newton, you've got Dylan Johnson, who now all of a sudden becomes like this amazing addition. I mean, he already was, in my opinion, but he's going to be asked to take a big role with guys like Will Nixon and some of these other guys that are deeper. Daniel Ngata, Sam Adams. Yep. Do you see any of those guys jumping out, or do you have like a preference on like, hey, I would love to see this guy step up and get a lot of PT out of that group?
Yeah, I think the best way I would explain it is, I think when you had CD, Cameron Davis, and Dylan Johnson, I usually call him just CD and DJ. It's kind of easy, right? So when you had CD and DJ together, you kind of had like that 1A, 1B. And I'm not sure if like, was Cameron Davis the 1A or was Dylan Johnson the 1A, But and then I think you kind of had like the tier 2 guys. And there's nothing wrong with being tier 2. Absolutely it's just I think that's what you kind of saw in 2023 and the way it was shaping up. You had the 1A and 1B. The nice thing is having a 1A and a 1B, now you can kind of just go to a 1, and then I think what you're going to see is your 1's going to be Dylan Johnson, so he's going to carry the bulk, which I think when he probably came here and transferred here from Mississippi State, I'm sure in his mind he was thinking, I'm the horse anyways. Like, I'm coming to be, to be the big dog on campus. And I think that we've kind of seen that. I mean, I think he's kind of created that alpha mentality. But I think what you'll see now is you'll see the Daniel Ngatas, you'll see the Richard Newtons, and you'll see like the Will Nixons. What you'll see is they'll probably share at first. And I'm sure they're already seeing it in practice with Cameron Davis's injury. But you'll see them kind of share that secondary workload, and the cream will rise to the top as it usually does in sports, right?
Right.
And so I think what I know Coach Marks really likes to go like a two-headed system. Really get those guys a lot of rhythm and maybe like slip a third guy in there, right? But so I think what you'll see though now is like DJ will run your 1, and then out of those 3, that's where you'll kind of get your 2A and then maybe your 2B out of that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah. I'm excited for this team, man. I mean, losing CD is obviously huge, and that's not only from a play on the play on the field, but when you're at practice, you kind of see guys rallying around. I think I saw a couple clips on Twitter of Cameron Davis just messing around with teammates and things like that. I think it's pretty clear that he has like a maybe not, I don't know for sure like has a major leadership role, but he seems like he has like just a teammate like connection with guys that maybe elevates him to a leader status. And so what I'm curious about is to see how Marks takes the adversity and like rallies it and last year, like a lot of people don't know, like, or assume that basically this was a super pass heavy offense, but I think, and we can look this up later, but I think we ran the ball like 52% of the time or something like that in terms of like just play calls. And so I think it's a sneaky thing that this offense actually does rely a little bit more than what people assume on the run. And I mean, I just want to talk about Dylan Johnson for a second, because obviously now that is a major, I mean, it was before, but I mean, now more than ever, him coming in to the University of Washington and potentially being your 1A back, coming from the SEC, 0 fumbles in 3 years. That's I know.
Knock on this course.
Knock on wood or whatever the table is.
Yeah.
But that is like a stat that like just nobody's talking about. Just quietly, this kid, we know he's receiving.
Ask any running back coach in the country, what's their number one concern? You know what they'll say? Ball security.
Exactly. So him coming into this offense, being that type of, he's a built kid, and they like to run. It seems like a lot of the last year with Wayne, there wasn't a lot of side-to-side stuff. It was up and down.
Yep. That's
kind of what I see in Dylan, is making guys miss in the box, whether that's running dudes over or just with one quick move. Having that and having him able to catch the, we know this about him. He's considered the best pass catching running back he was in the SEC.
Yep.
So there's a lot, like I'm hyping him up right now, and
you're gassing him up. Right?
Oh man, I'm gassing him up right now because I just think he's gonna get asked to do more than he was. I think there, because I think maybe he was at like 5.5 yards a carry.
Yep.
But I don't know if he was getting the absolute full workload there. I think one of his best years was around 700-800 yards for the year. So can you get a 1,000-yard rusher out of Dylan Johnson?
Oh, I think unequivocally the answer is yes.
I think so too.
Absolutely.
Especially having come from the SEC to the Pac-10, and I'm not hating or Pac-12, whatever it is now. I'm not hating on the front sevens in the pack, but I think most would agree that SEC
we don't have the
sevens.
front sevens that the SEC has. No, I think that's a pretty widely understood statement.
So behind him, and I'm curious about Will Nixon. I'm curious about Sam Adams.
Yeah.
He's a big dude. Rich Newton, we know what he can do.
Oh, yeah. He's looking for contact anytime, anywhere he can get it. He's trying to truck you. You know what I think this opens the door for, too, is I think we were going to see Tybo Rogers in a special teams role, at least for 4-ish games. I think we're going to give him an opportunity to return some kicks, return some punts, etc., right?
Right.
I think what this might actually do is open the door in maybe some of the games like or some of our earlier games, right? What you would expect those to be a little bit widely contested games. Like they should open up pretty quick, ideally, right? It might give a Tybo Rogers an opportunity to get some carries in the backfield too. Yeah. Because late in those games, maybe you're thinking like before you were thinking, oh, some of our third string type guys are going to get, our couple guys on third string we're going to, kind of get some carries, but those guys might be into our two strings now. And so with a Tybo Rogers type player, him and Sam might be able to like really show, hey, like we can do this too. So it's kind of it's the young bucks gonna have to show up quick, and that's kind of what injuries do. Yeah. But we don't recruit kids that we don't think can play Division I football and go to the NFL.
Amen.
So.
Yeah, Tybo is certainly one of those kids. I mean, from everything that I heard from early in camp, especially, was that there was no obvious separation between looking him at stature wise and looking at him run through drills compared to any other running back on the roster. And Tybo, he's a special kid because I know his mom. But I followed her on Twitter because she was tweeting out how he was the most underrated running back in the state of California, and I absolutely agree. Like, I think the staff immediately recognizes him as somebody who can contribute. And what I'll be curious to see is whether or not that they utilize him in the return game, because I think he's capable. Again, he's another guy that can make dudes miss in the box, and he's certainly big enough. So,
dude, he's a one-cut home run hitter.
Yeah,
I mean, he's legitimately a one-cut home run hitter.
Yes.
I forget what his 100 time was, but dude, he's a burner.
Yes.
And he can get up and go. And I think the coolest thing about him is, I've got a lot of messages, and people have said like, "Hey man, what's to do with Tybo?"
Right.
You know, and we don't need to get into too much detail. But the best thing that I've heard from one of the coaches, he said, "Hey, sometimes when these guys are young, you got to use times like this as a learning experience." And that's what I would talk about his suspension. It's a learning experience for him. Hey man, this is big dog football now.
Yeah.
And we expect a lot out of you at the University of Washington. Yeah. And we got rules, and we got curfews, and we got things that you gotta abide by. You got to go to class, and if you don't, I mean, you're gonna get a taste of authority. And you know what? That's what we have here. And I'm not too worried about Tyler.
Yeah, I don't think there's. Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's any concern with him. I think, obviously, with a staff like that, the staff that we have right now, there's character vetting. They go deep into the recruiting thing. So it's, these are exactly how you put it, learning experiences. And I think Tybo will bounce back from this. And we don't expect that this is going to be some long-term suspension where he's out for the year or something like that. But more of like, you're in timeout.
Yeah.
You're in timeout for now, and that's fine. But excited about the running back room. I could go all day. I want to, before we move off of offense, in terms of talk about guys, anybody who follows us on Twitter, anybody who's in the Discord knows how I feel about one player in particular.
D. Colt.
Him too. I love D. Colt.
I thought you were going to say.
No. But Austin Mack. When
Montlake Mac, baby,
dude,
Montlake Mac.
When you watch him throw, when you watch him take the field, of course we're gonna gas up a Husky quarterback or whatever, right? But I'm telling you right now, like, objectively, if you
hot take.
Nah, yeah, the kid, like, he is something special, man. Like, in terms of mechanics, mindset. I mean, there's a reason that they brought this kid in.
Brought him in early.
17 years old, comes onto campus. I was at the first practice that I saw him at. He was just standing on the sidelines. He wasn't in pads yet. He was just mucking it up with teammates, talking with his family was right there. They were talking to Courtney Morgan, and he seemed really calm, and he was ready. And it was like, all we had heard is that this is a really smart kid. There's a reason why he's stepping up, and he's coming to UW early. And I was just curious to see how he would interact with folks, and he looked the part, man. And I'm talking about off the field. I mean, on the field, it's ridiculous level of talent for him.
Yeah, I mean, I know that was like one of the biggest concerns with him is like, and we had the opportunity to talk to one of those national recruiting guys, and they were saying like, I just don't see it. He's only 17.
Yeah.
Like, is he really going to go into as a 17-year-old freshman? Can he really make that jump? And I mean, everything we've seen and is being reported out of camp is, dude, he's not only like making that jump. I mean, he looks like he can be a bona fide superstar at this level.
I agree. And, it'll be interesting next year, man, because, Demo's coming in. I think, obviously, Demo's got so much time in this system that you don't expect Austin Mack to start next year. But when I watch him, when others watch him, it's like, man, it's tough to keep him off. But again, I'm not sure on like how much of the playbook and how, the installs that he's ready to roll with. But
dude, next year, we don't even got to get into next year. But I mean, I think UW will end up bringing in like a transfer quarterback.
I agree.
To go head to head with Demo, go head to head with Austin Mack, and dude, that's exactly what you want.
Yes,
iron sharpens iron.
Absolutely.
And I mean, Coach DeBoer, man. Dude, he ain't looking to have a down season, a rebuild season, dude. He's ready to reload, and we're gonna keep moving forward, man.
Absolutely. 67 and 3 or something like that at the D2 level or whatever before he even moved up. Like,
and I think he's like 91 and 9 or something. I mean, I don't even know. It's something crazy. We could look that stat up. 91 and 7. Yeah. I mean, dude, 91 and 7. That's wild. Yeah.
Man. We were talking about this last night in the Discord, and you know, everybody pays attention to stars, and it makes sense, right? The data suggests certain things. And when we were starting to talk about like, all right, you know, here's who we have in this class. Here's who we think we're going to end up with or whatever. We're trying to project out the class. And then, you know, it was like, well, what's going to happen with X recruit? And we were talking about, you know, Jericho Johnson. We're all crossing our fingers. What happened was as we started breaking down the positions and we're like looking at the future, you know, you look at safety, they loaded up at DBs last year, and they're doing it again this year. Wide receivers like Rashid Williams, Jason Robinson, and then you think about having Austin Mack, you think about having Tybo, you think about Dom Kirks in this class, and all of a sudden you're like, is there really like this, you know, if there's a perceived like, hey, we're missing on 4 or 5-star guys or whatever, does that really like exist right now as you look at the roster construction as like an actual concern? Because when you break it down, man, the future looks super bright.
Yeah, no, it does. And I mean, there's nothing, I mean, as long as we have KDB at the helm, I call Coach DeBoer KDB, right? I don't know why I give nicknames. I think it's easier just to talk through, you know, but in my opinion, as long as we have KDB at the helm and he constructs his coaching staff, I have a lot of confidence in moving forward. And you know, something that people often look at. You know, it's easy to look at stars. Do we have 4-star guys? Do we have 5-star guys? But here's the thing: if you have a 4-star guy, if you have a 5-star guy, and he hasn't cracked the lineup in 2 to 3 years, is he like, yeah, your program's still getting credit for that? But, you know, is he really a 4-star, 5-star type guy? Yeah. You know, so.
What are you talking about, Noah?
Just some guys down south, you know, south of here that love using the stars because it makes a lot of sense and they get a lot of stars. And you know what? It is what it is. But that's kind of.
All I know is right now we sit at that same discrepancy, and we won that game in their house last year and won 11 games.
Yep, absolutely. And it's going to happen again.
Amen. Okay.
Dude, that game, by the way, is going to be... I'm going to tell you guys right now. I'm going to look in the camera. I'm not sure where you're going to be on October 14th, but there is literally, if you're in the Pacific Northwest, 300 miles away, 200 miles away, whatever it is, that game on Montlake might be the game of, at least of the century here in the 2000 plus. Because, dude, that is going to be 72, 73, maybe 74,000. We're going to be over capacity. It's going to be loud, standing room only. That is going to be maybe one of the we might break the decibel record that weekend. It's going to be as what the young bucks say. It's going to be lit, and it's going to be fun, man. And hey, if you're anywhere around this place, man, get a ticket. Get it now.
Yeah, you have to get in the door.
You got to get in the door of that game.
I was saying this, you know. Whatever. I argue with Duck fans on Twitter, all right? That's how it is. I'm going to do that forever. Yeah. That's whatever. Screw you, Duck fans. I was saying this, like, one thing and, you know, I know there's a lot of guys from the SEC on that roster and everything like that. That game, I promise you, it will be the loudest game that anybody on either team has ever played in.
I agree. That's a game where fans legitimately don't sit down for 60 minutes.
100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, you just wonder what kind of impact that has. So like when we go the tit for tat, like let's do some football math and try to figure out who's going to win that game. You have to consider the fact that that's going to be a massive advantage for the Huskies. And I'm going to say this: we didn't see that advantage last year. Like when we played at Autzen, I know the game rhythm and everything like that, but man. Yeah, don't get me started on Autzen.
That place was dead silent when Taj Davis caught that sideline tutty.
Let's talk about